Everybody. Today we're going to talk about the product life cycle. I'll try to keep the talking down to a minimum. And here we go. So, the product life cycle is just the idea that products, groups of similar brands, go through some type of predictable sales pattern from the beginning when they're invented or introduced to when they're no longer in the marketplace. Kind of like what people or living organisms go through. And what the product life cycle captures is what's going on between customers and competitors and all over a period of time. And why is it important? Well, if we understand what happens during different periods for these groups of brands, it's going to help tell us what we need to do to be successful. So it helps inform us about what are the key issues facing our brand at various stages in this product life cycle. So here is what the product life cycle looks like. It's a graph. So on the horizontal axis, that represents time. The vertical axis represents sales of products, similar brands. And that can be in total dollars, or it could be in units. The black line represents the amount of sales in units or dollars for a set of products or brands over time. The red dotted line represents the profit that's earned over that same period of time. And you can see both lines, but especially the black line is the one we're most concerned about right now. It starts off slow, rises quickly, levels out, and then drops back off. This is called an S-shaped curve. So we break the product life cycle down into 4 different sections. And the first one is introduction. And that's that first stage there. And that's when new products are introduced into the marketplace. And often for some period of time, their sales don't increase very much. Sometimes they fail right there and they never go on. This is analogous to if we use the human life. This is when somebody's a baby. They actually grow, a fair amount, right? But a baby might go from 8 pounds to 12 pounds in a short period of time, and percentage-wise, that's a lot. But when you end up being 6'3" and weighing 250 pounds, that's not very much. At some point, sales will increase, right? And we call that the growth stage. And sales take off, and it's very steep, and you can see how steep that curve is. All right. That means many people are buying the product, often for the first time. And then after a period of time, what happens? So here's growth. Sorry, I forgot that. So after a period of time, it hits maturity, right? Just like a person does. After age 18, 20, whatever it is, we stop growing. And same thing with in the product life cycle. So a set of brands that represent a type of product, they stop growing. There's not a lot of new buyers coming in that aren't being offset by people leaving. And then at some point in time, there's decline, right? Just like people get old and then finally pass away, that often happens with products. So there's a period of decline over time. Profit pretty much mirrors that, right? That red line pretty much mirrors that. And then you can see some of the examples. So in introduction stage, electric cars are probably still an introduction stage. We really only see one brand on the road, that's a Tesla. Even though they're selling pretty well, there's still a minority of cars that are electric cars on the road. Wearable technology like in your clothing, other things, it's been invented, it's out there, but not many people are buying it. It will take a while for that to become popular if it does. What are products in growth stage? Right, well, streaming, over the top streaming, whether it's through Roku or Apple TV to Netflix or YouTube TV or Disney or ESPN, that's in growth stage. People are cutting the cord and moving to streaming or keeping their pay TV and adding streaming stations. Esports is probably in growth. Right? More and more people are signing up for it. More people are doing it. It's been adopted at the high school level as an official sport in some states, and people are building curriculums around it. Maturity, cell phone service, laptops, right? When stuff is in maturity, it means that most everybody who's going to get one has one. So sales are only really replacement sales, and the market has reached some type of equilibrium. Then the last stage is decline. Things are dropping off, right? So DVD players, VCRs, desktop computers, landlines. How many of you are going to have landlines in the future? Probably not very many. So we're going to examine the product life cycle through these four stages. So the first one is introduction stage. And that means that somebody's come up and invented or introduced the first type of a new type of product, right? The first DVD player, the first 3D television, the first smartwatch, the first tablet, first MP3 player, right? So in the introduction stage, there could be a couple of competitors that have come out with a new type of product. So from a company standpoint, what are the key issues that occur during introduction? What's going on with customers? What's going on with competitors? So first, when we think about customers, there's a series of steps that normally they go through before they buy something new. We often call it AIDA. Those steps are awareness. They have to know it exists. You can't buy it if you don't know about it. Then once you know it exists, you have to say, hey, what is that? How can it help me? What are the benefits? Then you have to say, this seems pretty good. I think I want to get it. It's better than how I do things now. Then finally, you have to act on that desire. You have to go out and actually purchase it or perform the behavior. So consequently, when companies launch new products that are really different, consumers don't know very much about them. It makes it difficult for them to purchase them. So what the company has to do really is try to build primary demand, educate the customer on why they should buy the new type of product. Not so much what brand, because there may only be one brand out in the marketplace, but why they should purchase it. The issue for companies is you do that through marketing, and it's very expensive. And if you remember how we looked at the product life cycle, in that very first stage, in the introduction stage, profit was negative. So you're not going to usually make money because you have to make an investment in educating not only your customers, but any of the other companies you work with in your supply chain, especially wholesalers and retailers. So in terms of competitors or companies in the marketplace, there's usually one or a couple, not a large amount. The winner is the one that really establishes the product category, becomes the one known as the prototype or really the first one. For right now, for example, for electric cars, it would be Tesla, right? And back, before Tesla really got popular, there are different types of technology. They're still in existence. Some of them, right, for cars, they're still making hybrids. Chevrolet created a car that had an electric engine and battery in it, and then when it ran low, it would turn on a gas generator, the Chevy Volt. That's what it did. They scrapped that. Cost them probably close to $1 billion to develop that. There are other technologies available for propulsion, natural gas, biodiesel, fuel cell, hydrogen. So there's a lot going on in terms of technology during the introduction stage, and usually one of them will bubble up to the surface to be the dominant one. So if companies usually lose money during the introduction stage, why should you go first? Well, the research has shown that companies that often go first are able to dominate the marketplace during introduction and growth. By the time they get to maturity, they're the market leader. They're either one, two, or three in the marketplace. And if you look at companies like Nike, Under Armour, Coca-Cola, GoPro, Kleenex, McDonald's, they're all number one. They're not going to give up their spots anytime soon. On the other hand, though the research says that if you go first and make it, you're going to make a lot of money, a lot of companies don't make it. All right, MySpace, that was the first kind of social network. Who's on Facebook blew them away. All right, Apple was not one of the early MP3 players, the iPods. There was Samsung, there was Creative, there was Three Rivers, there was a whole bunch of them. Apple came in and blew them all away. They didn't make it. BlackBerry was really kind of the first smartphone. Where are they now? Palm came out with PDAs. And shortly after that, what happened? Phones came along. So there's no guarantee you're going to make it. How many search engines can you name besides Google? So the key strategic issue during the introduction stage is, should we go first? You might develop the new technology. You might be the first company to come out with the product or be able to, but does it make sense to be a pioneer or what we call the first mover? It's a big investment. There could be a big reward, a big return if you're successful, but many companies don't make it, and all they do is lose money. So what's the answer? Well, here, let me give you a little situation. I think I'm a pretty good basketball player. And I did play in high school, didn't play in college. So let's say I challenged Michael Jordan to a game of one-on-one. And it's a game to the first person to score a basket wins. It's on an NBA court. It's about 95, 96 feet long. I start with the ball underneath my basket. Michael Jordan has to stand 10 feet away from me. And then we have NBA referees there, so we're going to play by NBA rules. The ref's going to blow the whistle, and the game begins. There's no goaltending or fouling or anything like that. And I have to dribble down the court, get around Michael Jordan, who's a little bit younger than I am, quite a bit taller, and score a basket. And if I get a basket first, I get $1 million from him. If he scores first, I owe him $1 million. Should I take that bet? No, I shouldn't. All right? It doesn't make sense. The odds of me beating Michael Jordan one-on-one in that scenario are extremely low. Let's try a different scenario. It's still a bet for $1 million, NBA rules. But when we start, I get the ball at my foul line toward the basket I'm shooting. So it's right there. It's a foul shot for me. Michael Jordan has to start underneath his basket, the basket I'm shooting at. The ref is going to hand me the ball, and when I signal him, he's going to blow the whistle, and the game starts. Michael Jordan can't goaltend, otherwise I win. So should I take that bet for $1 million? Well, if I can hit a foul shot more than 50% of the time, yeah, it's cash money. So what's the answer? All right. Go first when by going first you can establish a competitive advantage. Going first is your head start. It's like if you have to race Usain Bolt and you start at the same place as he does, that's not a good bet. Don't go first. But if you can start at the 80-meter mark and he has to start at 100-meter mark, maybe you can beat him. So you don't always have to go first. It's a big investment with no guarantee of a return, especially if you're a smaller company. So you can wait. You can either partner with other companies, right, to help share the risk and the developmental costs, or you can just wait. Many times Apple just waits. They wait to see if the market's really going to be there and it's going to develop and how the competitors are looking. And then they design a better product when the product takes off into the growth stage. So the key during this stage is, hey, if I go first, can I get enough of a competitive advantage where I'm pretty sure I'm going to make it through growth into maturity and be successful? So the next stage is growth, right? Sales take off. If you remember, the product life cycle looked something like this. Introduction stage, sales are flat, and then growth, they take off, right? Why? Because there's first-time buyers and repeat buyers. People are upgrading, buying other things. And at the same time, new marketers come in. The market's growing fast. Everybody wants a piece of the action. So there's more and more models to purchase, and companies are making improvements in the products. So at this point, sales are pretty easy for companies. There's more consumer demand than supply initially. So companies can still do well even if they're not doing a great job, as long as their sales are going up faster than they lose market share. That happens because the market keeps growing, and that curve is so steep often during the growth stage that the market's growing at an increasing rate. It's growing at 5%, then 10%, then 20%, then 30%. So it's very attractive to different companies who want to try to get into that market. So as we saw, while profit peaks during the growth stage, companies have to reinvest their money into their business. They have to keep up with competition. They have to try to find new markets. They have to advertise and promote. They have to make sure that their brands are being distributed if they're using wholesalers and retailers. So as they grow their business, that's the main function during the growth stage, right? They have profits, but oftentimes they don't have cash. They sell things to suppliers or customers. They don't get the money back right away. They need to keep paying for R&D, developing new products and features and benefits. So oftentimes companies are low on cash. So during the growth stage, to understand the key strategic issue is we have to look at what's going to happen when the product life cycle goes from growth, where everybody's experiencing relatively good selling conditions and people are buying, to maturity. So when sales flatten out, what happens? So we're going to use a biological analogy. So imagine, a lush tropical desert island. There's no natural predators. There's a male and a female rabbit there. They don't have to worry about food or water, and there's no foxes or other animals that are going to eat them. So what happens? Yeah, okay? Rabbits are good at math. They're going to multiply, all right? So what happens? The island population grows rapidly. So this is the growth stage that we're talking about. You have a few rabbits and they have children and their children have children, and growth is exponential. It's increasing at an increasing rate until what happens? There's too many rabbits, all right? Not enough land and food on the island. So what happens when product life cycle transitions from growth to maturity? Sales level out. Companies, are preparing and counting on these increasing sales. And just for the rabbits, there's more rabbits than food supply. For competitors, companies in the marketplace, there's not enough customers. So what happens next? It's a battle for sales. Who survives? Which bunny rabbit is going to survive? That's really the question I'm asking, right? The strongest and the most adaptable. So there's going to be conflict. And by the way, in those pictures, those rabbits down there are actually eating cherries. But in the other picture, the two rabbits standing upright, they're actually fighting. So it gets bloody, right? We call this the market shakeout. All right. It often occurs during this period when right before the growth stage, as the growth stage is ending and into maturity. Firms who've been counting on this growth can't continue with it. So what do? They cut prices, they promote, they try to get sales any way they can. It's a bloody battle there with profits are what is sacrificed. What happens? Firms leave the marketplace, either go bankrupt or they leave voluntarily. They may merge and partner. Compaq and Hewlett Packard a while ago merged just because they're having a hard time surviving. Kmart and Sears merged because they were having a hard time surviving. It didn't help them, obviously. All right. And strong firms that are in good positions or have the opportunity to acquire the weaker firms or just go after their customers. So, what is the strategic issue? All right. You know that a market shakeout is coming. It's going to happen, right? Market's going to flatten out. There's going to be maturity, right? So, how do you survive, right? How can you even do better, right? It's like going to be like an apocalyptic world with competition, all right? What's the key? During the growth stage, you want to identify the best market segments to be in. Choose the ones where you can be profitable and be a market leader so that you can be the dominant company and you can acquire, if you want, your competitors' customers. It's better to be strong in one or two segments than to be a middle of the road company in terms of competitive value during the growth stage, and then come the transition into maturity, you're just going to get wiped out. So pick the battlefield that you want to play on. So eventually the market shifts into maturity. So it looks something like this. Period of slow growth, rapid growth, and then a leveling out. Why does maturity happen? Sales reach an equilibrium, supply and demand, right? The number of new buyers coming into the marketplace is offset by the buyers leaving. Replacement sales are greater than first-time sales. We all have phones, we all have televisions, and other types of products. We all basically have cars when we reach a certain age, or most of us do. You know, we don't buy multiple cars too often, right? There's usually one car per person, you know, so we only buy them when we need new ones. So the market slows down. At this time, too, think about it. This could be many years. It could be a short period of time with popular technology products, but people pretty much know what they want. Segments are well formed. Customers have a lot of experience. They know what they're looking for, right? And any company that survives through that shakeout period into maturity is a survivor, and they tend to be strong. So they know what they're doing. So after a bloodbath, just like you might feel after a really tough game or listening to this video from me, right? What do you want to do, right? Companies just want to relax a little bit. They need to get back to profitability. So after a big price war conflict, right, companies tend to not want to compete on price. I'm not saying they're colluding, getting together and saying that to each other, but they tend to shift their business away from price competition and start to focus more on profits. For example, you haven't seen Verizon and AT&T go at each other for a long time. The more they fight, the more it hurts both their profits. During this time period, firms have a positive cash flow. They have loyal customers. They're leaders in their segments. They don't need to spend as much money on marketing because they have loyal customers that are satisfied. So we call these brands cash cows. These are the well-established brands that have been around for a long time. And they're called cash cows because they give the milk that's needed to feed new investments, just like mother's milk is to help their babies grow. So instead of having a cash flow issue, these brands give off cash. You have to be careful though during maturity. There's always a threat that new companies can come in. For example, Sony dominated the gaming console a while ago. And then all of a sudden, out of nowhere, Microsoft dropped in with Xbox. Right? Microsoft had never really made a physical product before. So, but they came out, dropped it in the marketplace, and after a short period of time, they took a lot of market share away from Sony. And then when Xbox and Sony thought they had the market kind of sewed up, we came out. Nintendo dropped their product down, and in the first year that Wii was offered, they sold more than either Xbox or PlayStation. And now you have Nintendo Switch. So there's always a threat that new companies can come in. It wasn't that long ago when the US car market was dominated with a few European, Japanese, and American car manufacturers. Then Kia and Hyundai, who are actually the same company but had compete as different companies, came into the marketplace. How long before Chinese car companies are selling cars in the US? In addition, there's pressure on managers and companies to grow. So whether that's market share, sales, profitability, all right, you just can't tell your shareholders or your boss, say, you know what, we're in maturity, everything's going to be fine, okay? Let's just chill out. And on top of it, when we say a product, right, we actually mean a group of brands, right? All the different types of cars, let's say if we're looking at SUVs, whether they're Ford, GM, BMW, Hyundai, Kia, etc., right? There's different brands and companies in there. It doesn't mean that one brand can't do really well and one brand can't do poorly. All right, they're not all equal. It's just that when you do the product life cycle, you have a collection of the strong brands and the weaker brands. So you can still increase your sales during maturity. And there's a lot of pressure on companies to do that. So that's really the key strategic issue is how do you grow your sales, right, when the market's not growing anymore, when it's flat, right? So you need some help with growth strategies. We can use the product market growth matrix to help develop some generic growth strategies. This matrix was developed first by the Kraft Corporation. So what we're going to look at is customers or markets, same thing, and products. And we can think about our customers or markets along this vertical axis right here as either existing customers or markets, ones that we're already doing business in, and potentially new ones. And then we can also consider existing products up here or new products. And when we cross these two dimensions, markets or customers and products, we come up with 4 different types of strategy. So we're going to look at 3 of them. So when we take existing customers or markets and pair it with existing products, the strategy that comes out of that is how do we get more sales from our existing customers with our existing brands? Any type of strategy that does that in marketing, we call market penetration. Then, so that's right here. So if we look at existing markets or customers and new products, right, things we haven't made yet, then we can think of product development. So that's a very common strategy also, because we're going to make new products for existing customers who we know pretty well. And if they like our brand, purchase our brand, or loyal to our brand, they should receive our new products well. We can also look at new customers down here and look at existing products. We call that marketing development. So marketing development, or market development, I should say, is, hey, how can we sell our existing products to new customers that aren't in our existing market? The fourth strategy we'll look at, well, we really won't look at it because it's not really part of what a marketing manager would do, is diversification. That would say, hey, how can we find some new customers and sell them some new stuff that we've never done before? So that's a harder one to do, and that wouldn't occur normally at the brand man as part of what a brand manager would do. So we're going to focus on market penetration, product development, and market development. Market penetration. In other words, how to get more sales with existing customers with our existing products or brands. And this is pretty much just like what happened during the market shakeout. We're fighting over customers either by changing by changing our marketing mix, lower price, more features, different marketing communications, promotions of different types. So there's always a risk, especially using market penetration in maturity, is because the competitors that are left are all strong. They survived the market shakeout. They should be in pretty good position. They're unlikely to not do anything. They're more likely to fight back, and when they fight back, everyone loses profits. So yes, T-Mobile started advertising about 5G. All right, this is certainly the cell phone service's maturity. Verizon's going to fight back, all right, because they don't want to lose any of their customers. And we talked about churn earlier at another time and how important customer retention is. So it ends up being a marketing war. Whether they cut their prices or spend more money on marketing, it lowers their profits. So the question is, when does it make sense to pick a fight? It makes sense when you know you can win, all right? You have the guts to keep doing it, even though it's going to cost you, okay? And you know that your other company's not going to fight back because it's not that important to them. They're in the market, but it's not one of their most important markets. So what a lot of companies do is, with market penetration, you go after the low-hanging fruit. You go after the weaker companies, I should say, and fight with them because you're pretty sure you're going to win that battle with minimal costs. So there are some other strategies that don't involve attacking your competition. So why should we drink wine, especially red wine, milk, or take aspirin? Because if we drink wine, right, it's good for us in moderation. All right, milk gives us strong bones, prevents osteoporosis. All right, it's a good source of protein, and aspirin can help people who've already had a heart attack. So one strategy is find new uses or benefits of your brand to increase sales. So champagne sales in our country aren't really amount to a lot. What's the biggest problem? What's holding back the sales of champagne? It's the fact that we only drink champagne during special occasions, a wedding, maybe a divorce, a graduation, a birthday, an anniversary. So what you want to do is take your brand and find new situations or occasions when it can be used. I remember back in the day, orange juice used to be consumed in what was equivalently a juice glass, which was equivalently a shot glass. You only had orange juice in the morning. Then the orange growers got together and marketed orange juice as an any time of the day drink. Take Gatorade. Gatorade started off as a drink that you take after exercising to replace electrolytes. Now you can drink Gatorade anytime, pre-workout, during your workout, afterwards, and socially. So Gatorade, which is owned by Pepsi, has done a wonderful job increasing the situations or occasions that you can use Gatorade. Fast food restaurants get greater sales by supersizing it. Sell things in larger quantities, right? The old Coke bottle was 8 ounces and 12 ounces. When you buy a soda or tea or juice in a convenience store, it's 20 or 24 ounces. People don't drink all that, but they buy all of that. So sell it in larger quantities to increase your sales. Product development, selling new products to existing customers. This is a very attractive option because you already have some familiarity with your customers. They have familiarity with your brand. They understand what you're about. So it's very common. So my question for you is, what is the most amazing white powder in the world? No, it's not cocaine or heroin or sugar or flour. It's baking soda. Yeah, so Arm & Hammer has done a wonderful job with baking soda. They're able to sell it. So in baking, what does it do? It helps breads and grain rise. It's in toothpaste. They have their own toothpaste. You can use it as a deodorizer in your clothes or most commonly in refrigerator. You can use it for polishing silverware. It's a mild abrasive. That's why it's in your toothpaste. It helps keep your teeth whiter and oxygenate your gums. You use it in your laundry detergent. You can use it in science projects. So they've done a good job, finding new ways, developing new brands or co-branding with other companies to sell more Arm & Hammer. All right. Back in the 1980s, the portable radio market was in maturity. Right? Back in the 80s, when I was young, a radio basically had one speaker, AM, FM. That's what you got. All right. Two different types of radios were developed that gave a lot of growth to companies in the radio business. The first was Sony Walkmans, right? Everybody just called them Walkmans, right? They set the product category. We don't say personal radio device or anything like that. It's a Walkman. And then boom boxes. So they didn't sit around and say, gee, radios are in maturity. We can't do anything, right? Sony, the Walkmans, I can take my music with me when I work out, jog, and run. The boombox, I can make my music mobile, right? Nowadays we have Bluetooth speakers, but those both gave the radio company selling radios a boost. And then if you walk down the cereal aisle, what's going on? There's so much cereal. And when you think about it, it doesn't really make sense because nowadays, especially, what can you do for breakfast? Yeah, you can make a hot breakfast. You can have instant oatmeal. You can have eggs, things like that. You can have a smoothie. There's other types of breakfast shakes that you can buy pre-made, or you mix in with some liquid. Bagel, pastry, strudels, Pop-Tarts. And then, you don't even have to eat breakfast at home. You just get in your car and stop at McDonald's or now Wendy's or Dunkin' Donuts or Starbucks. You can get breakfast almost anywhere. There are so many different options. So what are the cereal companies doing? They're coming up with lots of different varieties. They're developing new products to try to capture as much sales as possible and take sales away from the competitors. One of the big important aspects for marketing in a grocery store is shelf space. So the more varieties you have, the more shelf space you can take up, the less shelf space for your competitors. Okay, and now market development. So product development, right? We're developing new products for existing customers. Market development, we're developing new markets for existing products. So where can we sell our products other places? So the most obvious one is geographic expansion. Expand, go global. There's no CC's around here. Chick-fil-A is just starting to filter up north. Same thing with Popeyes. So you can think about global, whether you're going to Asia, South America, Europe. You can also consider geographic in terms of rural, suburban, and urban. Walmart started off in rural, small towns where they could beat the pants off any competition. And once they got their act together, built up their bank accounts, got themselves so they had a strong operation, they started to move in suburban and urban areas to take on the Sears and the Kmarts at that time. Now, what do all these products have in common? You have a Jeep, you have a GPS, you have the internet, and you have a Hummer. Yes, they all have to do something with transportation, but that's not the right answer. That's not the answer I'm looking for. That is the correct answer. They were all developed by the military. The Jeep was used in World War II. The Hummer was used in the Gulf Wars. GPS was developed by academics for global positioning system. What would use that? Oh, cruise missiles and other type of projectiles. GPS for tracking your equipment, tanks and forces and the enemies. And the internet was originally developed as a network, a distributed network, so that if there was a natural disaster or a nuclear war and all the telephone lines got blown up, you would still be able to communicate. You might be able to have to communicate, go from Washington down to Austin, Texas, up to Minnesota to get to Los Angeles, but you could find a way. So the point is, when you think about market development, it's also government markets, consumer markets, and industrial or commercial markets. So now we're talking about decline. So the first question is, why do products go into decline? I mean, here are some other products over that you can see that are probably in decline. E-readers like the Kindle, MP3 players, right? Everybody's streaming using, Bluetooth, GPS units, simple digital cameras. Everybody uses their phone. The game of golf, probably not in decline, but its numbers are going down right now, right? It's expensive, takes a lot of time. Access is difficult, especially if you live in an urban area. Newspapers. How many of you guys are going to have paper editions of the newspaper? So why do products go in decline? Right? Because new products come along, right? New products are beginning their product life cycle, starting to go through growth and so forth. And for some reason, they offer more benefits or more value. So that's why products tend to go in decline, right? So if your product life cycle, not necessarily your brand, right? Your brand can do really well, your brand could not do well. That doesn't mean that the whole set of products are in growth or in decline. It's how a group of similar brands perform together. So anyway, but the key question is how to get out of the marketplace. There's really two options. The first one is really easy. You exit or divest. Divest, opposite of invest. All right, sell off, get rid of everything, tag sale, fire sale, all right? It doesn't make sense to do this anymore, and minimize your costs and get rid of everything. So when IBM stopped selling personal computers, they sold the rights to a Chinese company that was making them, Lenovo. And that's why Lenovo has computers that say ThinkPad, which is originally trademarked with IBM. They just got rid of everything, said we're not making hardware anymore of any type for computers because we can't make enough money. Now, what if you could still sell some of your products? There's still demand for DVD players in some degree. There's still people making turntables to play albums, vinyl, which I used to listen to back when I was in college. That hardly you can't buy them anymore. So there is sometimes some demand. There might even still be demand for VCRs, right? There's still demand for old-fashioned plain old flip phones, right? Or sometimes you just can't close up shop, right? You have contracts. You have a contract with a foreign government. You have a big lease on equipment or a site that you can't get out of, and it's going to cost you too much. There are certain things that you have to continue to make sometimes, even if they're not profitable. So obviously, Ford has gone to selling only SUVs, and so has GM. They're both making one vehicle. Ford's still going to make a Mustang. Even though they're going to make a Mustang SUV, they're still going to make a Mustang. Chevrolet, which is part of GM, is still going to make a Corvette. Why? Well, even if they're profitable, it doesn't bring in very much money. But they're both iconic. They're symbols of who they are, what they stand for. And not having those vehicles would hurt their brand image. So that approach is called a harvest or milk strategy. In that, hey, if I can make some money, or I have to try to, I can't get out of the business right now, even though I'd want to, you use a harvest or milk strategy, which means, hey, you're going to try to make as much profit as you can. So what do? Okay, you accountants in the audience, you should know this. You can raise your prices, right? It probably costs more to buy a VCR right now than a DVD player, for sure. All right. And what you're selling isn't, there's not, if everybody else is getting out of the business, there's not many of them. So it has value to some people. And then cut your expenses, right? You're not going to do R&D, no advertising. You might have another company distribute it for you or sell it for you. All right. You're going to have to probably let people go. All right. But you cut all of your expenses, raise your prices, and ride that for as long as you can until you can get out of the market. And here is a summary of basically everything we talked about with the product life cycle.